The funeral flowers were still fresh when I found the photos. 23 roses scattered across my father's mahogany desk, pictures of him and his secretary, intimate moments captured during the 8 months Mum fought cancer. While she withered away, begging for one more visit from her husband, he was taking weekend trips with a woman young enough to be his daughter. But the photos weren't what killed me. It was the letter underneath. My dearest Isabelle, Rosalind is finally gone. We can be together openly now. The inheritance is more than enough for us to start our new life. As for Vivian, she's 18, old enough to fend for herself. I died that night, clutching evidence of my father's betrayal, my heart simply stopping from the complete destruction of everything I'd believed about my family. Then, I woke up in my 16-year-old body, 3 years before cancer would steal my mother's voice forever. "Vivian, sweetheart, breakfast is ready." I stumbled downstairs, and there she was, Rosalind Mitchell, standing at the stove in her blue apron, auburn hair twisted into a messy bun, humming while flipping pancakes. Alive, healthy, perfect. "Morning, sleeping beauty," she said, turning to smile. "Your father already left for work, but I made extra bacon." I burst into tears right there in our kitchen. "Oh, honey, what's wrong?" Mum dropped the spatula and rushed over, pulling me into a hug that smelled like vanilla and home. "Bad dream." "I dreamed you were gone," I whispered, which was true enough. "I'm not going anywhere, not for a very long time." But I knew better. In exactly 2 years and 4 months, she would start feeling tired. The diagnosis would come back like a death sentence, and my father would abandon her for his secretary. Unless I stopped him first. This time, I knew exactly what I was dealing with. In my previous life, I'd learned crucial information too late. My father came from money. His father, Theodore Mitchell, owned luxury hotels across the Northeast, but had been estranged from us due to Dad's character issues. Grandfather had been trying to reach us for years, sending letters Dad intercepted. He'd even set up trust funds for my education that Dad had been draining. Too late to save Mum then. But this time, I had a 3-year head start. The first step was surveillance. I ordered tiny cameras, voice recorders, GPS trackers, all the tools needed to document every moment of his future betrayal. 2 weeks into my operation, I made my first move. Theodore Mitchell's office. "Hi, this is Vivian Mitchell. I'm Nathaniel's daughter. Could I speak with my grandfather?" 20 minutes later, an elderly voice came on the line. "Vivian, is this really my granddaughter?" "Yes, grandfather. I found your information online." "I've been trying to reach you for 10 years. Your father told me you and your mother never wanted to see me." "That's not true. We never got any messages." "Would you like to meet?" 3 days later, I sat in the Grandview Hotel lobby waiting for family I'd never known I had. When the elevator opened, I recognized him immediately. He looked like Dad, but with kind eyes instead of calculating ones. We talked for hours. I told him about Mum's art, about school, about how Dad had painted him as unforgiving. Grandfather's face cycled through hurt, anger, and cold fury. "He's doing the same things he did at 22. Grandfather said grimly. "I'd hoped having a family would change him. I think he's planning to hurt Mum financially, maybe even leave her." "What do you need from me, child?" "Help me protect Mum, and make sure Dad gets exactly what he deserves." The old man's smile was sharp as a blade. "I think that can be arranged." Over the next month, I became the perfect daughter while installing surveillance equipment throughout the house. 2 weeks later, I hit gold. Dad was in his office with the door closed when I heard him through my planted bug. "No, darling, she doesn't suspect anything. Rosalind's too trusting. Always has been." My blood froze. A young female voice responded. "When can we be together for real?" "Soon. I just need to arrange things carefully. The divorce will be expensive, but I have plans to access family money first. I hate this sneaking around, Nathaniel. When you took this job in Boston, you promised things would be different. Boston. This was wrong. In my previous timeline, he'd never left the city. Trust me, sweetheart. Once I'm free from this marriage and get back into my father's good graces, we'll have everything we want. I love you, Nathaniel. I love you too, Isabelle. The affair had already started. Somehow, my actions had accelerated the timeline. Dad was moving faster than I remembered. The next morning at breakfast, he delivered the news with perfect calculation. Rosalind, honey, the firm wants me to head up their new Boston office. It's a huge promotion. Mum's face lit up. That's wonderful. When do we move? Well, they need me to start immediately. I'll go ahead and get settled, find us a house. You and Vivian could join me at the end of the school year. I watched Mum's expression shift from excitement to disappointment to understanding. She was already making excuses for him. Of course, that makes sense. I wouldn't want to disrupt Vivian's junior year. You're the best, honey. Dad squeezed her hand and I wanted to scream. He was leaving to be with Isabelle while keeping us as his backup plan. But I had recordings of everything. That afternoon, I called Grandfather. He's leaving. Dad's taking a job in Boston. He says it's for family, but I think he's running away to be with someone else. Someone else? A woman named Isabelle. I overheard him talking to her. Vivian, I need you to document everything you can. Your father's made the same mistakes before, but this time we're going to make sure he pays for them. As I hung up, I felt the familiar rush of power that came with holding someone's secrets. Dad thought he was so smart, playing his games, manipulating everyone around him. He had no idea his daughter had died, come back to life, and was now playing a game he couldn't comprehend. The war for my family's future had begun, and this time I was fighting with the wisdom of someone who'd already lost everything once. I wouldn't let Dad slip away that easily. 2 days before his planned departure to Boston, I executed the first phase of my revenge. While he was at his farewell dinner with colleagues, probably saying goodbye to Isabelle in the most intimate way possible, I broke into his home office. The lockpick set I'd ordered online made quick work of his filing cabinet. Inside, I found exactly what I was looking for: financial documents showing systematic theft from accounts Grandfather had set up for my education. Over $60,000 siphoned off through forged authorizations and fake investment schemes. But the real treasure was his laptop. Dad thought he was tech-savvy, but his password was still Mum's birthday. The irony wasn't lost on me. His email history read like a masterclass in deception. Months of correspondence with Isabelle, job applications to Boston firms, apartment hunting in Back Bay, and most damning of all, communications with a divorce lawyer about minimizing asset exposure in a potential marital dissolution. He'd been planning this for almost a year. I copied everything to multiple flash drives, then did something that would have horrified my previous naive self. I installed keylogger software on his computer and phone. Every password, every message, every search would be monitored and recorded. When Dad returned home that night, reeking of expensive perfume that wasn't Mum's, I was waiting in the kitchen with a glass of warm milk. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, barely looking at me as he loosened his tie. "Still up?" "Couldn't sleep. I keep thinking about you leaving tomorrow." His face softened into what I now recognized as his manipulation mask, the expression he wore when he wanted to appear caring and paternal. "I know this is hard, Vivian, but it's only temporary. Once I get established in Boston, you and Mum will join me, and we'll be a family again." "Promise." I promise. The lie came so easily to him. In 12 hours, he'd be on a plane to Boston, moving in with Isabelle Crane in a luxury apartment I'd seen him research online. The lease was already signed, in both their names. I hugged him goodnight, and he actually seemed moved by what he thought was his daughter's devotion. If only he knew I was memorizing the feeling so I could remember exactly how it felt to embrace a traitor. The next morning, Mum made Dad's favourite breakfast, blueberry pancakes with real maple syrup. She'd gotten up at 5 a.m. to make sure everything was perfect for his send-off. "I packed extra coffee in your suitcase," she said, bustling around the kitchen. "And those protein bars you like. I know airline food is terrible." "You take such good care of me, Rosalind." Dad kissed her forehead, and I watched Mum's face glow with happiness at the simple affection. She had no idea it was goodbye. At the airport, Mum cried when Dad's flight was called. Real tears for a man who'd already abandoned her in every way that mattered. "Call me when you land," she whispered against his chest. "Of course, I love you." Another lie. I knew because I'd read his real itinerary. After landing in Boston, he had dinner reservations at a romantic restaurant. Table for two. The drive home was torture. Mum kept talking about house hunting in Boston, about how exciting it would be to start fresh in a new city. She'd already started researching art galleries where she could potentially exhibit her paintings. "Maybe this is exactly what our family needs," she said, staring out the passenger window. "A new beginning." If only she knew how right she was, just not in the way she imagined. That evening, I called Grandfather with my update. "He's gone, and I have proof of everything and the stolen money, the affair, the divorce plans." "Good. How is your mother handling his departure?" "She thinks it's temporary. She's planning to join him." "And you're going to let her discover the truth naturally?" I paused. In my previous life, I'd learned about Dad's betrayal too late to prepare Mum for the devastation. This time, I had the power to cushion the blow or let it destroy her completely. "I want her to see who he really is, but I want her to be strong enough to survive it. Wise girl, bring me copies of everything you found. It's time to accelerate our timeline." 3 days later, I sat in Grandfather's private office, watching him review the evidence I'd compiled. His face grew darker with each document. $63,000, he said finally, "from your education fund alone, and this." He held up printouts of Dad's emails with Isabelle. "This is exactly the same pattern from 25 years ago. Different woman, same lies." What happened 25 years ago? Grandfather leaned back in his leather chair, suddenly looking every one of his 78 years. "Your father embezzled from the family business to fund an affair with his secretary. When your grandmother and I confronted him, he claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that he was making investments for the company. We gave him a second chance." His voice turned bitter. "He disappeared the next day with $300,000 and the girl, moved to California, changed his name, started over." My mouth fell open. He changed his name? "Nathaniel Mitchell is an assumed identity. Your father's real name is Nathan Williams. He's been running from his past for decades, and I've been too proud to pursue him." The room spun around me. My entire life was built on a lie. Even our family name was stolen. "Does Mum know any of this?" "No. When he resurfaced 5 years later, married to your mother and claiming to be reformed, I wanted to believe he'd changed. I've regretted that weakness ever since." I stared at the financial documents spread across the mahogany desk, evidence of a pattern of betrayal spanning decades. "What do we do now?" Now we make sure he can't run again, and we prepare your mother for what's coming." Grandfather's plan was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of exposing Dad immediately, we would let him believe his deception was working while systematically dismantling his escape routes. The stolen money would be frozen, his new identity would be exposed, and when he finally revealed his true intentions to Mum, she would have the resources and support to destroy him completely. "But first," Grandfather said, sliding a business card across the desk, I want you to meet someone. The card read, Vivian Palmer, private investigator, specializing in marriage fraud and financial crimes. Another Vivian. She's the best at what she does. Your father isn't the first man to try this con, and she's destroyed dozens of them. Consider her your mentor in the art of strategic revenge. I met Vivian Palmer 2 days later at a small cafe downtown. She was nothing like I'd expected. Mid-40s, conservative suit, the kind of woman you'd never notice in a crowd. Which, I supposed, was exactly the point. Your grandfather filled me in on the situation, she said, stirring cream into her coffee. Classic pattern. Your father's what we call a life cycle predator. He builds a life with one woman, bleeds her dry, then moves on to the next victim. How many times has he done this? Based on the background check your grandfather commissioned, at least 4 times that I can prove. Probably more. She slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were photographs, documents, marriage certificates under different names. Nathan Williams, Nicholas Mitchell, Neil Winchester. My father had more aliases than a career criminal. Isabelle Crane is victim number 5, and she has no idea what's coming. I flipped through images of Dad's previous wives. All beautiful, all successful, all ultimately destroyed when he disappeared with their assets. What happened to them? Bankruptcy mostly. 1 suicide. Your father is very good at what he does. The coffee turned to acid in my mouth. Suicide? Wife number 3, Patricia Werner, a successful real estate agent in Phoenix. He cleaned out her accounts and left her responsible for massive debts he'd hidden from her. She couldn't handle the shame. I closed the folder with shaking hands. This wasn't just about Mom anymore. This was about stopping a predator who'd been destroying women for decades. Here's what we're going to do, Vivian Palmer said, leaning forward with the intensity of a general planning a campaign. We're going to give your father exactly what he thinks he wants, a clean escape with his new victim. And then, we're going to make sure it becomes the trap that destroys him. Over the next hour, she outlined a plan that was breathtaking in its complexity. We would allow Dad to establish his new life in Boston, then systematically expose his crimes to law enforcement in multiple states. The stolen money would be traced and recovered. His false identities would be revealed, and when the walls closed in, he'd have nowhere to run except back to Mom, who would be ready for him. The key, she explained, is timing. Your mother needs to be strong enough to handle the truth when it comes out, and your father needs to be isolated and desperate when he realizes his game is over. How long will this take? 6 months, maybe less. Your father is overconfident. He's gotten away with this so many times that he's become careless. We'll use that against him. As I walked home that evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Boston is amazing. Found us a great house in Cambridge. Can't wait for you and Mum to see it. I almost laughed. He was sending the same generic lies he'd probably sent to all his previous families. But this time, his victim had an advantage none of the others possessed. This time, his victim had a daughter who'd already died from his betrayal and come back to life with a heart full of righteous fury. I texted back, "Can't wait, Dad. We miss you so much." Let him think I was still the naive little girl who believed in his lies. Let him think his plan was working perfectly. He had no idea that every text, every call, every email was being monitored and recorded by people who specialized in destroying men exactly like him. The countdown to Nathan Williams' final reckoning had begun. The trap was set, and Dad walked right into it. For 3 weeks after his departure to Boston, he maintained his charade perfectly. Daily calls to Mum filled with fabricated details about house hunting and office politics. Photos of generic Boston landmarks sent to make his lie seem authentic. He even FaceTimed from what looked like a hotel room. claiming his temporary corporate housing wasn't very photogenic. What he didn't know was that Vivian Palmer had eyes on him 24/7. The luxury Back Bay apartment he shared with Isabelle was under surveillance. Every restaurant dinner, every romantic weekend, every moment of the life he was building with stolen money, all documented in crystal clear detail. Meanwhile, I was watching Mum slowly fade. Not physically, not yet, but the woman who used to hum while painting had grown quiet. She'd stopped working on her art entirely, claiming she needed to focus on preparing for the move. The truth was deeper. Some part of her sensed the abandonment, even if she couldn't name it. "Do you think your father sounds different on the phone?" she asked me one evening as we cleaned up after another dinner eaten in silence. I looked up from loading the dishwasher. "Different how? Distant, like his mind is somewhere else." She stared out the kitchen window toward the garden she'd lovingly tended for 15 years. "Maybe it's just the stress of the new job." This was my opening. In my previous life, I'd spent these months reassuring Mum that everything was fine, that Dad's coldness was temporary. This time, I chose a different path. "Mum, when was the last time Dad asked about your art?" She paused, a plate halfway to the cabinet. "His art? Your paintings? The gallery submission you were working on before he left? Did he ever ask how it went?" The plate clattered onto the counter. Mum's face went pale as she realised she couldn't remember the last time Dad had shown any interest in her work, in her dreams, in anything beyond what she could provide for him. "Maybe he's just overwhelmed," she whispered, but the doubt had taken root. That night, I heard her crying through the bedroom walls, soft, careful sobs muffled by the pillow that used to hold Dad's scent. She was mourning a marriage that was already over, even if she couldn't admit it yet. The next morning brought the first crack in Dad's facade. He called during Mum's usual painting time, or what used to be her painting time. She was in the kitchen staring at grocery lists, and I watched her face transform when she heard his voice. "Nathan, hi. I was just thinking about you." But something was wrong. Even from across the room, I could hear the noise in the background of Dad's call. Laughter, music, the unmistakable sound of a party. "Sorry, honey, can you speak up? I'm at a work function and it's pretty loud here." Mum glanced at the clock. 10 a.m. on a Wednesday. "A work function? This early?" "Oh, it's a breakfast meeting with West Coast clients. Different time zones, you know." The lie was weak, and we both knew it. I pulled out my phone and opened the surveillance app Vivian Palmer had given me access to. Dad's GPS location showed him at a trendy brunch spot in the South End. The photos updating in real time showed him at a table for two with Isabelle, champagne glasses raised in celebration. I turned the phone so Mom could see the screen. Her face crumbled. "Nathan, I have to go," she said quietly into the phone. "Everything okay? You sound strange." "Everything's fine. I'll talk to you later." She hung up and stared at the evidence on my phone screen. Dad laughing with another woman while lying to his wife about work meetings. "How long have you known?" she asked. "A few weeks. I'm sorry, Mum. I wanted to protect you, but..." "No." Her voice was stronger than I'd heard it in months. "I needed to see this. I needed to know." She sank into a kitchen chair, still staring at the photos of Dad's betrayal. But instead of the complete collapse I'd expected, something different happened. Her spine straightened. Her jaw set with determination I remembered from my childhood. "Tell me everything." Over the next 2 hours, I showed Mum the full scope of Dad's deception. The financial theft, the multiple identities, the pattern of abandoned wives. She absorbed it all with an eerie calm that reminded me why I'd loved her so fiercely in both my lives. "So, he's done this before," she said finally. 4 times that we can prove. And Isabelle has no idea what's coming. None at all. She thinks she's won the lottery. Successful, older man, established life, financial security. Mum was quiet for a long time, studying the photos of Dad and his mistress. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. In your research, did you find out when I get sick? My breath caught. Mum, don't lie to me, Vivian. I can see it in your eyes. You know something about my health. I couldn't tell her about my previous life, about watching her die while Dad abandoned her for another woman. But I could prepare her. I found medical research Dad had been doing about cancer, early detection, treatment options, financial costs, like he was preparing for something. It was close enough to the truth. Mum nodded slowly. How long do we have? The research suggested symptoms typically appear within 2 to 3 years for women with our family history. Mum stood up and walked to the window overlooking her garden. Then we have time. Time for what? She turned back to me, and for the first time in months, I saw fire in her eyes. Time to make sure that when I do get sick, I'm not dependent on a man who would abandon me. Time to build a life that's mine, not ours. Time to make sure your father pays for every woman he's destroyed. That afternoon, Mum called Grandfather. Theodore, this is Rosalind. I think it's time we met. The dinner was arranged for the following evening at Grandfather's private club. Mum spent hours getting ready, not out of vanity, but out of strategy. She chose a navy blue dress that made her look powerful, professional jewellery instead of sentimental pieces, and styled her hair in a way that emphasised her intelligence over her beauty. How do I look? She asked as I drove her to the restaurant. Like a woman who's about to take control of her own life. Grandfather was waiting in the club's oak-panelled dining room, rising to greet Mum with the courtesy of his generation, but the respect of someone who recognised a fellow survivor. Rosalind, I am so sorry we're meeting under these circumstances. I'm not, Mum replied, echoing what she'd said to me days earlier. I wish we'd met sooner, but I'm grateful we're meeting now. Over dinner, they talked strategy. Grandfather explained the legal framework Vivian Palmer had constructed. The financial investigation, the identity fraud charges, the evidence that would ensure Dad could never run his con again. What do you need from me? Mum asked. Patience. Your husband is about to make several critical mistakes. When he does, we'll be ready to capitalise on them. And Isabelle? She'll be collateral damage unless she chooses to cooperate. Vivian Palmer will approach her when the time is right. Mum cut her steak with surgical precision. Good. She may be a victim too, but she chose to participate in destroying my marriage. She deserves whatever consequences come from that choice. I stared at my mother in amazement. The woman who used to cry at sad movies was calmly discussing the destruction of her husband's mistress. There's something else, Grandfather continued. I want to transfer the house into your name immediately, along with establishing independent accounts for both you and Vivian. When this comes to light, your husband will try to liquidate everything he can access. He's already started, Mum said. I checked our joint accounts yesterday. He's been making regular transfers to an account I don't recognise. We'll trace those transfers. Every penny he's stolen will be documented and recovered. After dinner, as Grandfather walked us to the car, he pulled me aside. Your mother is stronger than your father ever gave her credit for. I know. I think that was his biggest mistake. No, his biggest mistake was underestimating you. You orchestrated this beautifully, Vivian. Your father has no idea what's coming. As we drove home, Mom was quiet until we reached our street. Vivian, I need you to know something. Whatever happens next, whatever we discover about your father, I don't regret our marriage. Why not? Because it gave me you, and watching you handle this situation with such maturity and strategic thinking makes me proud of the woman you're becoming. If only she knew I'd already lived through the worst version of this story. If only she knew I was fighting for both our lives with the desperation of someone who'd already lost everything once. That night, I lay in bed listening to Mum move around the house. She wasn't crying anymore, she was planning. I could hear her in Dad's office, going through files, making lists, preparing for war. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Missing you girls so much. Found the perfect house. You're going to love Boston." I typed back, "We miss you too, Dad. Can't wait to join you." 3 time zones away, Nathan Williams had no idea his carefully constructed world was about to collapse around him. He thought he was living his perfect life with his perfect mistress in his perfect apartment. But perfection built on lies never lasts, and I was about to prove it. The final act began with a phone call that changed everything. It was 2 a.m. when my phone rang. Vivian Palmer's name flashed on the screen, and I knew immediately that something had gone wrong. "He's running," she said without preamble. "Your father discovered the financial investigation. He's liquidating assets and preparing to disappear." I sat bolt upright in bed. How much time do we have? Hours, maybe less. He's already transferred $200,000 to an offshore account. If he gets to that money, he'll vanish, like he did before. I was already pulling on clothes. What triggered this? Isabelle got suspicious about his past and hired her own investigator. When she confronted him with evidence of his previous marriages, he panicked. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so dangerous. Dad's own victim had accidentally blown up our carefully laid trap. I woke Mum and explained the situation as we raced to Grandfather's house at 3 a.m. She took the news with the same steel composure she'd shown for weeks, but I could see fear creeping into her eyes. "If he runs now, we lose everything," she said. "The evidence, the money, the chance to stop him from doing this to someone else." "Not everything," I replied, thinking of the insurance policy I'd kept hidden. "I have something he doesn't know about." Grandfather's mansion was blazing with lights when we arrived. His security team had been activated. Lawyers were on conference calls, and Vivian Palmer was coordinating with law enforcement across multiple states. The house felt like a war room. "Status report," Grandfather demanded as we entered his study. "Nathan Williams booked a red-eye to Miami under his real name," Palmer said, consulting her laptop. "From there, probably a connecting flight to a non-extradition country. He's following the exact same pattern from Phoenix 15 years ago." "What about Isabelle?" "That's where it gets interesting." Palmer pulled up surveillance photos on the wall screen. She didn't run with him. According to our sources, she confronted him about his lies. He confessed everything, and she threw him out of the apartment. Mum leaned forward. "She chose to stay. More than that, she's agreed to cooperate fully with law enforcement in exchange for immunity. Apparently, your husband made the mistake of bragging about his previous cons, including details about the wife who committed suicide." The room fell silent. Even through all my planning and preparation, hearing about Patricia Werner's death still hit like a physical blow. "He told his mistress about driving a woman to suicide," Mom said quietly, "and he was proud of it. According to Isabelle's statement, he called it natural selection and said Patricia was too weak to deserve success anyway." I watched Mum's face transform. The last traces of the woman who used to make excuses for Dad's behaviour vanished completely. "Where is he now?" she asked. "Boston Logan Airport. Flight leaves at 6 a.m. I checked my phone. 4:17 a.m. "We can still stop him," I said, "but only if we move now." "The FBI is coordinating with airport security," Palmer explained, "but he's travelling clean. No warrants have been issued yet, and the financial charges are still being processed." "Then we need him to confess," Mum said. "On record." Everyone turned to look at her. "What are you suggesting?" Grandfather asked. Mum's smile was razor sharp. "I'm suggesting we give him exactly what he's always wanted. one last chance to manipulate the situation to his advantage. The plan was insane, dangerous, and absolutely perfect. At 5:30 a.m., I called Dad from the airport security checkpoint while Mom and Palmer monitored from a nearby surveillance van. "Vivian? Sweetheart, why are you calling so early?" "Dad, thank God. I've been trying to reach you all night. Something terrible happened." "What's wrong? You sound upset." "It's Mum. She found out about Isabelle. Everything. She's threatening to call the police to ruin your career. Dad, she's completely lost it." The pause on the other end told me everything. He was calculating, wondering how much Mum actually knew. "Where is your mother now?" "That's the thing, Dad. She's not acting rational. She keeps talking about pressing charges, about you stealing money. I tried to tell her it was just a misunderstanding, but she won't listen to me." "What exactly did she find? Documents about the education fund? Emails between you and Isabelle? Something about other women?" "Dad, I don't understand half of it, but she's saying horrible things about you." I could hear airport announcements in the background. His boarding call would come soon. "Vivian, listen to me very carefully. Your mother doesn't understand the full situation. Yes, I made some mistakes, but everything I did was to protect our family." "Protect us from what?" "From the truth about my past. Before I met your mother, I had some business difficulties. Legal complications that weren't my fault. I had to reinvent myself to start over." "You mean you changed your name?" "Among other things. And yes, there were other women before your mother, relationships that ended badly, but not because of anything I did wrong." He was confessing everything, painting himself as the victim while incriminating himself with every word. "What about the money? Mum says you stole from my college fund." "I borrowed from it temporarily for investments that would have made us all rich. But the market crashed and I lost everything. I was going to pay it back, I swear." "And Isabelle?" She was helping me rebuild our finances. I never meant for it to become romantic, but your mother had become so cold, so distant. A man has needs, Vivian. The recording devices were capturing every lie, every admission, every self-serving justification. "Dad, I'm scared. Mum says she's going to call someone named Patricia Werner's family. Who is Patricia Werner?" Dead silence. "Dad, are you there? How does your mother know that name?" "I don't know. She just keeps saying it over and over. Something about you being responsible for what happened to her. That's not..." Patricia's situation was different. She had mental health issues that had nothing to do with me. When our business partnership ended badly, she couldn't handle the stress. Business partnership? We were married briefly, but it was more of a financial arrangement. When I had to leave Arizona for legal reasons, she took it too personally. He was admitting to Patricia's death like it was a minor inconvenience, like driving a woman to suicide was just collateral damage in his con game. "Dad, please come home. I need you here. Mum's talking about hiring lawyers, private investigators. She says grandfather is helping her." "Your grandfather? Theodore is involved in this?" "She called him yesterday. They met for hours. Dad, I think they're planning something really bad for you." Another long pause. I could picture him in the airport terminal, luggage at his feet, calculating whether it was safer to run or try to salvage the situation. "Vivian, I need you to do something for me. Can you keep your mother calm until I get back? Tell her I'm coming home to explain everything." "You're coming back?" "I'm catching the next flight, but I need time to arrange things properly, to make sure she doesn't do anything that would hurt our whole family." "What kind of things?" "Legal things that would make me look guilty when I'm not. Your mother is emotional right now, not thinking clearly. She could accidentally destroy the life we've built together." The narcissism was breathtaking. Even facing complete exposure, he was positioning himself as the victim and Mum as the irrational hysteric. "I'll try, Dad, but hurry. I don't think I can control her much longer." "You're a good daughter, Vivian. I know this is confusing, but when I explain everything properly, you'll understand that I did it all for you and your mother." After I hung up, Palmer confirmed that Dad had cancelled his Miami flight and booked a return to our city. The trap had worked. Instead of disappearing forever, he was coming back to try one last manipulation. "He thinks he can spin this," Mum said, listening to the recording playback. "He actually believes he can convince me that stealing money and abandoning multiple wives was somehow noble." "The recording is legally admissible," Palmer confirmed. "Combined with Isabelle's testimony and the financial evidence, we have enough to put him away for 20 years minimum." But Mom shook her head. "Prison isn't enough. Prison means taxpayers support him, and eventually he gets out to hurt someone else." "What are you suggesting?" Mum's smile was cold as winter. "I'm suggesting we let him destroy himself completely. No prison, no martyrdom, no chance to reinvent himself again." The final confrontation took place in our living room 12 hours later. Dad walked through the front door looking haggard but determined, carrying flowers and wearing his most manipulative smile. "Rosalind, sweetheart, Vivian told me you've been upset." Mum was sitting in her favourite chair, completely composed, with legal documents spread across the coffee table like tarot cards predicting his doom. "Hello, Nathan. Or should I call you Neil or Nicholas? I'm having trouble keeping track of your names." Dad's face went white, but he recovered quickly. "I can explain everything. Please, let's talk about this rationally." "Oh, we're going to talk. Sit down." Over the next hour, Mom systematically destroyed every lie Dad had built his life on. She presented bank records showing his theft, photos of him with Isabelle, documentation of his previous identities, testimony from his abandoned wives. With each piece of evidence, Dad's explanations became more desperate, more contradictory, more obviously false. "You drove Patricia Werner to suicide," Mum said finally. "You stole her money, destroyed her credit, and abandoned her to face bankruptcy alone. She killed herself because you made her believe she was worthless. That's not what happened." "I spoke to her sister yesterday. Patricia left a note before she died. It mentioned you by name, Nathan, or Neil, whatever you were calling yourself in Phoenix." Dad stared at her in shock. "You contacted her family?" "I contacted all their families. Every woman you've destroyed has loved ones who remember. People who've been waiting 15 years for justice." The true brilliance of Mom's revenge revealed itself. She hadn't just been gathering evidence. She'd been building a network of victims and survivors who could ensure Dad would never disappear again. "Here's what's going to happen," Mum continued. "You're going to sign papers transferring all stolen assets back to their rightful owners. You're going to confess publicly to fraud charges in multiple states. And you're going to surrender every false identity you've created. And if I refuse, then I release your recorded confession to every major news outlet, along with evidence linking you to Patricia's suicide. Your face will be on every true crime podcast and missing persons database in the country. You'll never be able to run another con because everyone will know exactly who you are." Dad looked around the room like a trapped animal. "You can't do this to family." "Family?" Mum laughed bitterly. "You stopped being family the moment you chose your first mistress over your first wife. You're nothing but a predator who uses people's love as a weapon." "Vivian," Dad turned to me desperately, "you understand, don't you? I was trying to provide for you, to give you opportunities. You were stealing my college fund to buy jewellery for your girlfriend," I said calmly, "and you were planning to abandon us the moment Mom got sick." His face crumpled as he realised his last hope was gone. "Please, I can change. I can be better." "No, Mum said simply. You can't, and I won't give you another chance to destroy innocent people. Dad signed the papers. All of them. Asset transfers, confessions, identity surrenders. When it was over, Nathan Williams ceased to exist, and the broken man who remained had nothing left but the consequences of 30 years of lies. 6 months later, I stood in Mum's new art gallery, watching her laugh with friends at her first solo exhibition opening. The space was small but perfect, paid for with recovered funds from Dad's victims, and filled with paintings that reflected her newfound freedom. Any regrets? Grandfather asked, joining me near a stunning landscape that seemed to glow with inner light, only that it took dying once to figure out how to save her. And your father? I glanced toward the window, where I could see Dad's reflection in the glass. He was across the street, watching the gallery from a bus stop. Broken, alone, reduced to spying on the life he'd lost through his own choices. He gets to live, I said, but he gets to live with the knowledge that he destroyed everything good in his life, and there's no one left to con, no identity left to steal, nowhere left to run. Mum appeared at my elbow, radiant in a way I'd never seen her before. The critic from the Times wants to feature your work in Sunday's art section, Grandfather told her. Can you believe it? Mum's joy was infectious. 53 years old and finally living my dream. As the evening wound down, I helped Mum close the gallery. We were locking up when she paused at the window. He's still out there, isn't he? I looked across the street. Dad's silhouette was barely visible in the shadows. Do you want me to call security? No. Mum's voice was peaceful, almost serene. Let him watch. Let him see what happens when you choose truth over lies, when you build something real instead of stealing what others have created. We walked to the car together, leaving Dad alone with his ghosts and the life he could have had if he'd been capable of love instead of just need. In my first life, I died believing that some people couldn't be stopped, that predators always won in the end. But I was wrong. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy, it's letting them destroy themselves while you build something beautiful from the wreckage they left behind. Sometimes justice looks like a mother finding her voice and an artist finding her light. And sometimes the greatest victory is simply refusing to let someone else's darkness extinguish your own flame.